From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
So today's note comes from an expert. I always love to hear from subject matter experts. Aaron S. You write to us and say, "Hey guys, I am a meteorologist, so I thought I could add a bit about cloud seeding and lightning since you touched on them in Strange News. Cloud seeding using silver oxide or any other chemical is based on providing more, quote, cloud condensation nuclei, or CCN. For the rain to form, you need enough large raindrop-sized drops to form. By themselves, it is very hard for drops to grow to this size. However, if there are some CCN present, which can be salt, dust, etc., the water can condense onto the CCN, which allows them to grow to raindrop size more easily due to the physics of how drops form. Thus, by adding silver iodide to the atmosphere, you increase the number of CCN, which increases the number of raindrop-sized drops, which makes it more likely to rain." That's an excellent explanation, I think, here, and it kind of demystifies it. But here's where you go a little crazy with this, Aaron. Kind of, in a very factual way. Aaron says, "Looking at lightning, I can neither confirm nor deny its sentience, especially considering that proton gradients could have been the origins of life."
Whoa.
Way to bury the lead there. However, I can say that lightning occurs when a charge separation within clouds occurs, and it descends from the clouds as multiple tendrils, which are all trying to reach the ground, with the tendril that reaches the ground first being the one in which the flow of electricity will flow through. If you then have a lightning rod or a tall object like a tree, then the lightning is more likely to reach the lightning rod before it reaches the ground and is thus more likely to strike the lightning rod rather than the ground directly, although it is still possible for the lightning to strike the ground directly. That is why we can only make it more likely for lightning to strike particular places, but cannot directly control where it strikes.
Yet.
Yet. Because we've got the lasers now.
They're coming.
But so that was something that came up on the discussion, Ben, like where a lightning rod alone isn't just going to attract it enough. Like that certainly stacks the deck in your favor, but like to your expert's point, it could still strike the ground or a little of both, perhaps, right?
Yeah, because what Aaron's saying here is that when we are looking at lightning strikes, we're tending to focus on that one strike that makes a ground connection, and all the other electricity pours into that connection. But really what we're seeing is just the first past the post. I do want to say, Aaron, I greatly appreciate the care you put into not using anthropomorphizing terms there. There were a couple times where I was like, I know what you almost wrote, man. I know, because I would have done the same thing. But I love the explanation here, and I love the demystification. But I also want to know more about proton gradients, origin of life. What do you guys think that even means?
Well, I don't know if he's taking it here, or maybe I'm just fully off base, but I believe, well, maybe I'm just wrong with proton gradients, because I was thinking it has to do with the electrical charge itself. So the energy that is released with a lightning strike, and that being one of the primary ways that biological particles were excited enough to cause some of the changes that were required to bring about life, to make a mutation to make a mutation occur spontaneously, essentially. That would then jumpstart life. But maybe I'm completely off base with that.
I don't think you're too far off there, Matt, because I want to shout out Khan Academy, which is a great and free way to learn stuff. So I had dug into a little bit, some of the papers that were, I'll be honest with you, Aaron, because it's my job to be honest with people.
Is it?
a lot. That's what I consider. it to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Why am I not up to snuff?
No, I just mean that's part of your job, I guess. That's interesting. That's a really cool way to look at it.
So. I mean, it should be for everybody doing the kind of stuff we do, right? We're not going to sell you bone broth.
Are you sure?
So-
I mean, yeah, okay.
So
Illumination makes us do all kinds of things that we,
Illumination Global Unlimited. Yeah.
We'll give
how are
you
the
a real bang up recipe for bone broth, though. Take bones, add salt to the water, boil the bones. Why do you need to buy the broth from someone? Make your own. Use your leftover chicken bones. Make your own bone broth. The proof is in the broth.
So I did find a pretty good explanation that hopefully will help for the layman such as myself in the crowd. So proton cells are powered by these things called proton gradients. Virtually all cells appear to quote unquote breathe by pumping protons. There was a molecular biologist named Leslie Orgel who said this is the single most counterintuitive idea in biology after Darwin's. And recent research shows us that proton gradients are necessary for the origin of life because of the way these gradients form and the way that they interact with the cell in something called, wait for it, oxidative phosphorylation. It's our unnecessary word of the day. Go forth and try to use that casually in a conversation. Tell us how you do. And this a proton gradient is just a product of, it's like an imbalance. It's a product of what's called an electron transport chain. So a higher concentration of protons outside, like the little inner membrane of your mitochondria, which we'll all remember is the powerhouse of the cell. That is like the driving force behind what's called ATP synthesis. So without getting too much further in the weeds, just to be clear, what Aaron is saying here is that proton gradients could have been the origin of what we call life, but Aaron is not saying that proton gradients are thinking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's not saying this proves that lightning is sentient. So it's a little bit, it would be misleading for us to say a meteorologist wrote to us and said, yeah, maybe lightning could be sentient, because you're not saying that. We're not going to misconstrue it. But I do wish that is what you had said.
But it's not a hard no,
It's not a hard no.
Yeah.
It's like I'm the guy in Dumb and Dumber going, so you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah. I just have to add in here, I'm looking at SciTable from nature.com, and they've got an article called Why Are Cells Powered by Proton Gradients? And it's got a little piece on there about why possibly this was the origin of life. And it doesn't talk about lightning in any sense in there. But yeah, really, really fascinating stuff. Can I jump back into something that was mentioned in that email, Ben?
Yeah, please. I've got some stuff too.
Okay, awesome. I want to point out this concept of the tendrils from what did he call it? Well, he's talking about the proton gradients and charge separations within the clouds, and then they're sending down tendrils to see which one's going to hit the ground first to create the charge and let it release the energy.
Would you say they're racing?
Right.
I'm not going to stop. Yeah.
I mean, just that image, I think, of a cloud's tendrils reaching down at the ground and at you, if you're out there, standing in a field and just happen to be unlucky enough to have one of these tendrils reach down near you or to you. That's an eerie image. Oof.
Yeah. The one thing that I realized we hadn't talked about, which your explanation inspired, Aaron, was the other ways that people have consciously or maybe even unconsciously modified the weather. In 2007, NOAA put out a paper about hurricane modification, which I didn't realize this, but back in 2007, Matt, to your earlier story, there was serious research on using lasers to discharge lightning in storms, and they were doing this. This was to dissipate
Yes.
a hurricane or step it down before it became one. But then there were other things like pouring liquid nitrogen onto the sea, because that would remove the heat energy a hurricane needs. These are things we can do. We're just not totally sure what the other consequences will be, right? And then there's the idea of very Matrix style. This reminded me of you. Blacking out the sky with soot to change the air temperature, right? In the Matrix, the sky is darkened because the non-organic entities are solar powered. And it comes back to haunt them. Spoiler if you haven't seen The Matrix. But in this case, they're really like, the argument is, let's just go into pollution like 100 miles an hour, and then we can stop a hurricane.
Yeah. Didn't we talk about, but I guess that would be a small, isolated blocking out of the sun, I'm assuming. Clouds above the clouds, essentially.
I guess so. I guess that's what they would have to do. But to our knowledge, none of these have been used, or none of the soot stuff has been deployed yet. Probably because it's a very difficult thing to control, in a globally connected weather system. But
it's a callback to our stratospheric aerosol injections episode.
Yes, one of the sexiest titles in stuff they don't want you to know. As we've said, the stuff they don't want you to catalog. As we've said in previous segments, we always love hearing from subject matter experts. I personally wish more people in civilization would pay attention to the experts. So thanks for writing in, Aaron, and thank you for using critical thinking to give me just like that give us that one little extra piece of maybe, just maybe, lightning is a thinking entity. I know Aaron's shaking his fist at the sky saying, that's not what I said, but we were fair about it. Gradients, man. Thank you so much.